The Atlanta Braves take down the New York Mets again, thanks to Matt Olson. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Wednesday, June 25th. Your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. A lot of stuff I want to get to here. I want to talk about... We saw two different offenses last night, but we have seen more offensive consistency. We've seen this team better be able to shut things down from their bullpen. But talking about last night's win, the Braves beat the Mets 7-4. And I'm really heartened by a lot of what Atlanta was able to eventually do in this game. Frustratingly, they could not really figure out Frankie Montas. Returning from the injured list, he pitches 5 scoreless innings, 3 hits, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts. But as soon as Atlanta gets him out of the game, they absolutely just start to go off. Atlanta ends up putting up 5 runs in the 6th inning. They add 2 more in the 8th. And what's hilarious to me is Montas, again, just... They can't really figure him out. He throws 80 pitches across 5 scoreless innings, and then Atlanta sees 54 pitches in the 6th inning. Just a scenario where New York uses 4 different mound visits, throws 3 different relievers in the inning, gives up 5 runs on, I think, only 3 hits, with 4 walks in there as well. And we're not going to sit there. We're not going to break down exactly what happened in that inning. I just want to look at some of the general trends of the game, right? If you want to see a breakdown of the actual inning, go over to today's 3 things on bravestoday.com, where I broke down what happened in the inning and some of the changes they made and all of that. But the biggest thing for me with this Atlanta team is you saw them score 7 runs last night without hitting a home run. And that's been one of the stories of this team, is they're built to slug. And when they haven't been able to slug, they haven't been able to put up a lot of runs. And they don't have a home run yet in this Mets series, yet they've won the first 2 games. And fun fact on this, winning game 1, 3-2, that was the first time the Braves have won a game scoring 3 runs or less since Saturday, May 10th. So the bullpen's been pretty good as well. We'll get to them in a second. But just a scenario where Atlanta has been able to get to do enough to win. Now, just like I talked about with the Mets series last week, some of this is on the Mets, right? Their pitching, again, just completely collapsed in that 6th inning. They did have to use Reed Garrett again. They've now thrown him twice. And if my math is right here, I believe they have thrown every single reliever on the roster in one of these 2 games. So if you're trying to look at what's going to happen, Reed Garrett's been their best reliever of the year. He threw 18 and 22 pitches in back-to-back days. He is probably out for Wednesday. Daniel Nunez threw 40 pitches last night. He's probably down. Richard Lovelady, probably also down. Ryan Stanek might come back. He threw 28 on Monday. Huascar Brazaban is down. Edwin Diaz, they're probably going to have to bring him back. He threw 24. They used Jose Butto on Monday. They used Jose Castillo yesterday. Like, they've used everybody. And Atlanta, for the most part, has been able to get hits off of most of these guys. And so New York has to really hope that Clay Holmes can get it done. Atlanta really needs to not be as aggressive against Clay Holmes as they were against Sandy Alcantara on Sunday, and as they've been against some of these Mets pitchers where you've seen some 6-pitch innings, 8-pitch innings, right? Where Atlanta's swinging early and often, putting the ball in play and drawing outs. Atlanta definitely needs to try and extend the at-bats against Clay Holmes to get him out, to get into an overworked bullpen. But again, Atlanta wins on a day with no home runs. Atlanta wins on a day with no Ronald Acuna Jr. base hits. Yes, he does have 2 walks. He does steal a base. He does come around to score, but he goes 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts. Just an unusually off day for Ronald Acuna Jr. And Atlanta is able to still get a win out of this. So, a little bit surprising, but if you look at what happened, they get contributions from the bottom of the lineup. Eli White goes 3 for 4 with an RBI. Nick Allen goes 3 for 4 with an RBI. Fantastic there. You love that. Eli White, when he comes in as a pinch hitter, he does get a base hit. He ends up going 1 for 3 in this one. He pinch hits for Verdugo and then takes over in center field after Michael Harris leaves the game. We'll get to that in a second. And the big star here was Matt Olson. 2 for 4, a run, 3 RBI, and a walk. And he was the one that just cashed in a lot of this stuff. So, in the 6th inning, bases loaded, Ronald strikes out. Olson comes in, 2 RBI single and doesn't end up coming back around to score. But then in the 8th inning, we see Fairchild strikes out swinging. Nick Allen grounds out. So 2 outs. Ronald walks. Matt Olson doubles. Ronald scores from first. Marcell Ozuna walks. And then Riley doubles and Olson scores from second. So Olson ends up being directly involved in several Braves runs here, including both insurance runs in the 8th. And they ended up being important. New York gets a run in the 9th. They get the tying run to the plate. We'll talk about the bullpen in a second on that. But fantastic win for Atlanta. Credit to Matt Olson. And I think that we sometimes lose track of Matt Olson's, how good he has been this season, because his batting average isn't great. He's batting .253, which obviously is not the best in baseball. You look at other first basemen, and there's a good 12 with a better batting average than him. Pete Alonso's batting .286. Vlad Guerrero's batting .281. Jonathan Aranda in Tampa Bay is batting .332. Tampa Bay has like 4 first basemen on the roster. It's nuts. They got to make a move somewhere. But Matt Olson is 3rd among first basemen in homers with 15. When you look at RBI, he's 3rd among first basemen in RBI with 50. Actually, he's tied for 2nd with 52. You look at walks drawn, he leads all first basemen in walks drawn with 45. You look at runs scored, he is tied for 2nd in runs scored at 46. And then the big thing for me is when you look at WAR. Matt Olson, no matter if it's Fangraphs or Baseball Reference, Matt Olson leads the National League in WAR for first baseman. And part of the reason Matt Olson's been so good and why he's so highly rated on Fangraphs WAR, on Baseball Reference WAR, leading all first basemen in the National League, is because his defense has been so awesome. He is plus 12 DRS. He is tied for 3rd in all of baseball for defense. And when you look at the position, not only is Matt Olson the number 1 defender in baseball by DRS, he's almost double everybody else. He's at plus 12. Spencer Steer of the Reds is at plus 7. Carlos Santana is at plus 5, and then everybody else is plus 4 below. And Matt Olson has legitimately been just the absolute best defensive first baseman in baseball, bar none, combined with the fact that he's hitting so right now. Again, among most first basemen, he is leading in a lot of different, he's a top 3 in a lot of different statistics. And then again, he is the best at walking, stuff like that. When you look at defense, all that, he's the complete package. In just a second, I want to talk about Spencer Strider yesterday. We've seen a little bit of different stuff from him. I'm going to get a little pitching nerd on you in a second. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Let's do some pitching nerd stuff real quick when it comes to Spencer Strider, because I talked when he first came back about how he needed to vary things up and be more of a 3 or 4 pitch guy, right? He needed to not just be fastball slider 90% of the time like he used to always be. He needed to mix in more curveballs and changeups. Since his velocity has started to return, and again, last night was, I think, the 3rd or 4th consecutive start where his average fastball velocity was over his yearly average. He's now up to 95.8. He touched 97.8 last night. And so as his velocity has started to return, he's from a usage standpoint stuck with that original fastball slider combo, right? We're going to use the pairing of these two 90% of the time. But what has changed, and I don't know if it's on purpose or not. I've noticed this a couple times in the past, and I was watching for it last night before I wanted to say anything, is the locations. So we've always talked about the fastball. The four-seam fastball is designed to be thrown up, right? You throw the four-seam fastball up in the zone because of the induced vertical break, because of the backspin and how it resists gravity on the way to the plate. It looks like hitters swing underneath it. The last couple starts, especially to righties, Spencer Strider's been bringing the fastball down in the zone. So rather than going up and away, right, the opposite corner and elevated against righties, he's been bringing it down to the middle of the zone and bringing it in towards their hands. It's still in the zone, but it's on the inner third, and it's in the middle height-wise of the zone. And because of that, the additional velocity on the slider, when the slider is back to 84, 85 miles an hour, I talk a lot about an 85 mile an hour slider is kind of that sweet spot for me once you hit 85 with that, and he averaged 85 last night on it. Once you hit 85, it's really hard for a gyro slider at 85 or harder to be bad. Now that the four-seam fastball locations are down and the slider is harder, it's become significantly more effective. He got 5 whiffs on 13 swings on the slider. The main pitch for him last night was still the four-seam fastball. Okay, he threw it 58% of the time. He got 9 whiffs on 22 swings, 13 called strikes, 8 foul balls. They only put 5 into play. But now that the locations come down a little bit, one, he's getting more called strikes because they're expecting that fastball out of the hand to be up. And the at-bats are progressing in a pretty predictable way. He's using a lot of sliders when he gets to 2 strikes to try to get the whiff, because that's been the pitch. That's been the swing and miss pitch. But I don't know if this is on purpose or not. I was watching for some of this last night. Unlike Sean Murphy, Drake Baldwin leaves the glove up a little bit longer for a target. Sean Murphy does that thing where he briefly flashes it and then drops it to the dirt. That way, if he can better frame the low strike because he's coming up the whole time, and so he can catch it on the way up and hold it in the middle of the zone for a strike. That's why guys drop the glove to the ground, by the way. That's, if you're curious why they do that, they're not saying throw it in the dirt. They're keeping the glove down so that they can better frame low pitches. Baldwin leaves the glove up a little bit longer, and he wasn't asking for the fastball middle in. A lot of the time, he was still setting up high, and I don't know if that was they're trying to deke the hitter. I don't know if that was Strider deciding to throw it somewhere else and not being on the same page as Baldwin. I don't know if that was Strider's trying to throw it up there and it's dropping more than usual. And it's, when you look at the induced vertical break numbers, it was slightly down yesterday. He averaged 16 inches. The yearly average is 17 for induced vertical break. So it was slightly less vertical break, slightly more horizontal, but that doesn't explain going from up and away to middle in. That's enough of a movement. It doesn't fully explain it by the horizontal and the vertical movement being different, right? That's a bigger adjustment than just that, right? It's all the way across on the other side of the strike zone horizontally. 1 inch doesn't do that. So I wonder if that's on purpose or not. And the concern I have, and I saw this a little bit last night, the concern I have is it feels like Strider's inviting early swings on the fastball. And like, don't really think it's become a problem yet. But I don't know at the same time if I trust Philly to not pick up on that and just key on fastball early in the at-bat and tag that fastball, because Strider doesn't have the ability to make the adjustment he made in the 23 postseason. If you remember the 23 postseason, they had a strategy. We're going to sit slider and we're just going to foul off the fastball. And so because of that, he ramped up his fastball velocity and he was throwing 100. He can't do that now. So, like, again, it worked out fine last night. He did okay. The control got away from him a little bit there. I don't think it was anything egregious. But my concern is that Strider's fastball early in the count, that strong preference right now, and what we saw recently, is I worry that teams are going to start jumping on that. And so I'd love to see them mix it up a little bit more. Maybe it's just the location, or maybe it's the usage. Maybe you try to steal a strike early on a curveball or something before you start hammering fastballs and then drop the slider off of it. Maybe you, instead of a fastball, maybe you throw a changeup. I know he doesn't love throwing his changeup. He doesn't think it's very good. I remember talking to him in spring training last year, and he said, like, why would I throw my third best pitch more when I can just, or my fourth best pitch more when I can just throw my best pitch? Like, why throw a lesser quality pitch? And I get that. But when you're too predictable, there's concerns there. So that's where I am with that. I just want to see, I'm not saying a little more variety, but a little less predictability from Spencer Strider, because it is still good stuff. It's not as good of stuff as 2023. He's still not back yet. He's not fully back to that point. Again, he did just averaged 96 miles an hour, 95.8 on the fastball. He touched 97.8. Back in 23, he was averaging 97.8. I do want to see him vary it up a little bit more. The flip side of this is that slider late in the at-bat has become very good. It's almost impossible to hit. It's 1/3 of the time dudes are swinging and missing on that pitch. So, and he's almost never throwing it in the zone for a strike. Last night, 29 sliders, 17% in the zone. So he's almost never throwing it in the zone for a strike. It's actually surprisingly impressive that guys are even going for it knowing that. But again, bringing the fastball down has helped with it, because now it's harder. It takes longer to differentiate the fastball and the slider on the path of the plate. Same release point, same arm slot, same early movement. And by the time you see the slider breaking down, it takes an extra microsecond or whatever to make that determination, because you've seen so many fastballs down, which is the adjustment here. So the fastball in and of itself isn't as good when it's down versus being up, but the slider being better offsets that. And I think that's the goal for Spencer here. While we're in here, tonight's matchup, Clay Holmes versus Didier Fuentes. I talked about the stuff plus the other day for Fuentes. It was really good. What I'm looking for him tonight is sequencing a little bit better and maybe not taking pitches off. And by taking pitches off, I mean the 3-run home run he gave up in that last start against Miami was on a first pitch curveball. A lazy curve he flipped in there. It was middle of the zone, but I think it was inside a little bit, maybe like inner third, middle of the zone. And it got rocked. That's a pitch you can get away with in AA. You can sometimes get away with it in AAA. You can't get away with that against major league hitters. And it's all little growing things like that, little growth moments like that. I do expect, given how hot it is, the Braves have been rotating the catchers day by day, right? Murphy pitched game 1, Baldwin caught game 1, Baldwin caught game 2. I expect Murphy to catch tonight, and I like having the veteran Murphy guiding Didier Fuentes through the start, simply because Obviously, Murph's going to sequence him pretty well and going to, I think, do a pretty decent job of trying to keep him from making some of those obvious mistakes like that. Again, slider, curveball, four-seam splitter. StatCast calls the slider a sweeper, and it gets more drop than a traditional sweeper. I guess I see the classification there, why they consider it a sweeper. It has less horizontal movement than a standard sweeper and more drop than a standard sweeper. It's probably closest to a slurve, really. The velo is, I think it averaged 82. So it has the slower velocity. It's not that 85 mile an hour gyro slider I'm a fan of. And honestly, I do think a great pitch for Fuentes to add eventually would be a cutter. I do think he would be really good with either a cutter or a harder gyro slider, right? Either one of those. You throw a cutter at 90, 91, you throw a gyro slider at 88, 89. I think either one of those would be a really good addition for the future. But I guess you can call this a sweeper. Although, again, it drops more than a sweeper and it doesn't move horizontally as much. But either way, excited to see what he can do with his second start. After saying all the stuff plus numbers, I really am a believer that he can be a legitimate contributor. The question's going to be how long is the learning curve for Didier Fuentes? We saw it with Schwellenbach, where by his fifth start, it feels like he was getting over that hump of the fifth inning, the second, third, the end of the second, top of the third time through the order, struggling with opposing hitters and how to put them away for a second or third time. Fuentes, I feel like, is going to be able to get there as well. He settled in after that home run last time. So we'll see what he does tonight. Really excited about that. We will be back I'll have a postcast over on Locked On Sports Atlanta after that game. We'll be back tomorrow with another show. Those of you who also read the newsletter, there may not be a newsletter on Thursday, a deep dive Thursday morning. Today is my birthday. We're going out for dinner before the game, so I may not have time to sit and write a newsletter. We'll see what happens. Do us a favor, if you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when I drop the next episode. Also, subscriptions over at bravetoday.com, free or paid, helps the show out a ton. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.